Well, welcome to the video on how I'm going to have different items that will appear as I walk along my hallway in my cave or in my dungeon. And fundamentally, what this is that I have the same stuff that I had before, except I have my stuff.h, and I included the random number program in my header file, which we'll look at. What I have here is I have a class called game items, and this is the class definition right here. And basically, let's see what I have. I set up a string array of 6 items that goes from 0 to 5. And I'm only using 5 of the items in the array elements. The reason why is that stuff sub 0 really sort of doesn't make sense for what we're doing. I want to use a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So I set this up, a string, to have 6 array elements, and I'm only going to use 5 of them. From 1 through 5, I am not using the 0 element. What I'm doing is that each of these array elements I'm setting equal to a different set of objects, like shoes, a knife, 10 gold, old rags, an empty bottle. And fundamentally, what this method is, it's a public method. It's a type string. It's not void. And the reason why it's a data type string is because it's going to be returning a string. It's going to be returning one of these 5 strings. And the way it does it, that has an argument here, and I can put a number in here, an integer, between 1 and 5. So if the number I put in here is a 1, then stuff, right down here, stuff will be a 1, which means it will now return shoes. If I put the number 3 in here, this will now be stuff sub 3, and stuff sub 3 is 10 gold, and it'll return the string 10 gold. That's fundamentally how this works. If I come down here to main, I have game items or my items. That's the class, and I've instantiated the class for that. Then I have random my number. You say, where did random come from? Well, random came from the program, the class that I just put in my header file. That's the one we covered in the last program. And I'm calling it my number. And I have an integer I created for select. So what I've got here is I've got select is equal to my number dot ran number 5. And this is going to return a random number between 1 and 5 every time I run the program. That value will be picked up by select. So what I'll see an item on the output which will be my items, the items, select. And what is this? Well, this is going to be the random number from 1 through 5, which will be put into here, which will now be put into here, which will determine which one of these array elements is returned to me, and that's what I'll see here. So it'll say item, colon, and then I'll see the item that's actually returned by this method, and then of course the carriage return and the system pause. Let's give it a try and see what happens. I'm going to click on this, and I get 10 gold. Press any key to continue. Well, that had to be this, 10 gold, so it must have been a 3 that was the random number. Now, since it's a random number, I can get 3 again. There's nothing that prevents me from doing that. I'm going to try and compile it again and see what I get. And this time I get item is the knife. And of course, what the random number generated that time was the 2. If I want to see what the header file looks like, what I can do here, I can come to File, and I can come to Open, and I'll come down here and click on the H, and there's my header file, and I click on that, and I open it here. And if you notice, inside the header file, there's my class random that we talked about in the previous video. There's my class game location, which I'm not using in this example. And in the header file, I included not only the con.io, but also the C standard library, so I could get the random thing going, and the C time, so I could base it off the time, that is the number of seconds since January of some date in the year 1970. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and open up my other file that uses this, my C++ files, which happens to be right here, and I open that, and there's the file I was talking about. Now, what would be cool is to have all kinds of stuff that I could find in my dungeon. Not just 5 items, but 50, maybe even 500. And to have them in different categories, like magical items, armor items, and other kinds of items, quest items, and so on. And I could put all that stuff here in this class, and it would be a lot of code that I'd be seeing all the time. So it'd be nice to put all that code into a header file. However, the problem arises now if I do that and I want to change some of the stuff that I can get, I have to go into the header file and now edit the header file. That is not considered good practice. So what we're going to see in future videos, we're going to see how we can take all of these items and put them in a separate text file called a .ini or initialization file, or called a .xml, an XML file. And all I have to do is change those ini files or XML files using a simple text editor, put those items in there, and then what this program will do is simply pull those items from those text files, the .ini or the .xml, which basically are just text files, and put them into the program inside the header file, and then I can go ahead and just start coding this part here, and I don't have to worry about all this other code that's up here. That's how it's really done in games, and you probably have seen .ini files or .xml files somehow associated with the games that you play. Okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens. And there we go, and I see I have 10 gold this time, and I'm going to try it one more time. I might get 10 gold again, there's no telling, and this time I get the shoes. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.